Hey folks, this is Steve with Nonprofit Ally, and I have actually on Skype video, also being recorded in audio. With me is Boris Kievsky. He is with .org Strategy, which is at .orgstrategy.com. He helps nonprofits focus on developing best practices in the online world. That's kind of the nutshell, best practices in the online world, but we are going to expand upon that. But Boris, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really happy to be here today.
This is great. Hey, this is our first video podcast. Of course, people will be listening to this, but they can also see it on YouTube. So I apologize in advance for any and all technical difficulties that may arise. So,
it sounds like fun. I'm happy to be your guinea pig.
Well, cool. So we kind of ran across each other. I think it was on Twitter we got in touch, and I right away went to .org Strategy and saw that you are helping nonprofits in particular with their kind of digital strategy. Tell me a little bit more about what you're doing in that realm. That's a large realm. So that it's what's the niche you're in there?
It is. So basically, what I focus on and my team here focuses on is helping nonprofits do more without spending much more. Basically, get the most for their resources using the best practices, latest online tools that are out there. I find that nonprofits are always playing catch up, and for various reasons that we could go into when it comes to what technology they're using and how effective they're being. So I saw this as an opportunity to really go out there and help them. I've worked with a lot of startups. I actually work with an incubator here in New York as well. And they're always adopting the latest technologies, and they're fast, agile, nimble, lean, if you will, right? But nonprofits, they have a lot of legacy that they're always dealing with, and they don't always know what's the easiest and best way to jump into the latest technology, or what technology to even go and try, right? Because they've got limited resources. They can't be playing around with experimenting with the wrong thing. So really, that's where I come in.
Yeah, and I think what I find with a lot of nonprofits is that when it comes to marketing or online development and things like that, it doesn't seem mission related. So it seems to be taken away from what their priority is. And I think learning how to make it enhance and extend their services or their outreach it's there and waiting to be done, right? So I think that's an important connection people need to make.
100%. Yeah.
So
it's a big thing that I talk about, actually.
Yeah, well, perfect. Let's start talking about that. Now, there are always developments going on, and I see them all the time. Like Facebook wants you to donate online now, and you can sign up for a mailing list here. And it's like it gets overwhelming because then Twitter has something, and the next thing you know is there's a new social platform. But then you got to be building your mailing list, and I can see why people don't even want to begin, right? Because where do you start?
Yeah.
Are there trends now that are happening that you see are building a foundation or a base for nonprofits to get into, as opposed to something that might be a little more fly by night?
Yeah, there definitely are. It's always hard to tell, what's going to have the long term, but there are certainly trends as far as, more instant communication, more interactive. People want to feel like they have a relationship with any business that they're going to be supporting. And of course, a nonprofit, which is so much more cause related, and the rewards are so much less tangible oftentimes to a donor, right? The more you can build that relationship, the better. And where Facebook was a couple of years ago the most engaging platform because everybody could see all your posts, today it's not, because you have to pay to play. And so there are other platforms that people are moving to, like Instagram. Some are going to Snapchat, of course, Twitter, maybe less so these days, except Twitter is still great for building relationships, like the way that you and I met, right? And a lot of nonprofits aren't using that. There are also best practices, ultimately. I'll diverge for a second here and say that whenever a client comes to me, a consulting client of any sort, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit, oftentimes they want marketing help. They want to grow their base. They want to grow their audience, grow their sales, whatever it might be. And what I talk to them about is this conversion funnel, right? In marketing, we have conversion funnels where you get your leads from all sorts of places here at the top, and then you funnel them down until they become a customer. In nonprofit, I call that an impact funnel. So where are the people that you're attracting today, or the people that you want to attract? Where are they today, right? And then how do you drive them? At the bottom of the funnel, even though Facebook now added their button so that people could donate directly, even though there are a lot of engagement tools that social media platforms are creating, at the bottom of the funnel oftentimes is your website. And when you drive people there, they want to learn more about you. If that doesn't work, then everything collapses. right? So I often have to then reverse engineer the funnel for people and say, look, it's great that you want to market. It's great that you want to be on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter and Pinterest and wherever else you might want to be. But if you can't convert them from fans, then it's vanity metrics, right? Who cares how many Facebook fans you have if none of them are actually taking actions that further your mission?
Right. And you got to lead them somewhere. It's kind of like if you're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, it's like buckshot. You're just like putting these signals out there, but you're not bringing them into something that they want to learn more about. Like that funnel, I think that sales funnel, from what I understand, it's kind of like you're engaging them, and then you're engaging them at the next level. And they're choosing to go that level. You're not forcing them down this funnel. And of course, you're going to lose people along the way, but if you're buckshotting 1,000 people and no one's responding, or you can funnel 100, there's your return.
Yeah, absolutely. I call it the spray and pray method, when everybody just launches everything out into every platform that they can and hope that people come back. Well, you're diverting your resources to areas that might not be working. I always say you should be testing. And actually, I encourage people to follow the Pomodoro rule with the 80-20 and say, okay, devote 80% of your resources to where you're getting results, where you're currently working and hopefully getting decent results, and then 20% to experimenting. And as it's working, that folds into your 80 because now that's working, so it should be part of your core. And now keep diverting 20, keep experimenting on a new platform with new types of messaging, new types of storytelling.
Right. So that communication then, because it seems like it's based on communication, and that communication be done in various ways. So it's going to be video or email or Facebook, right? It's funny you mentioned Facebook. Just as a side note, in one of my last podcast, which hasn't been published yet, but as listeners are listening, they probably listened to it already. But they mentioned Facebook as the old platform. I was like, oh my God, it makes me feel old already. It still feels kind of new.
Yeah, well, Facebook is old in some ways. And then again, Facebook is really smart. There's a reason they bought Instagram. And now the big thing, which is huge on Facebook and nonprofits really need to be looking at, is chatbots. Right. Chatbots are taking off and taking over all kinds of communication, and they feel more personal. They feel almost like you're texting with somebody or instant messaging with somebody, especially if they're done well. And Facebook is on top of these things.
Great. Maybe while we're talking, you can figure out how, since we're on video, maybe demoing. I don't know if you have a demo of that chat box, but I know that I'm glad you went that way, because we were talking about communication, and that's where I kind of wanted to go. We're talking about instant communication, and people are coming to expect this. I need an answer now. I'm not waiting 24 hours for a reply in the email. How do we get that relationship built? Chatbox being, it sounds like, one of those methods.
Yeah, so a chat box is great for being able to just quickly answer certain questions, disseminate information to a whole lot of people. So right now, for example, on Facebook, if you publish a post, 1-2% of your audience will see it unless you pay to play, unless you promote it. If people opt into your chat box, your chatbot, which you could create to be cross-platform, but most people today are going to be using it on Facebook and or on their website. If people opt into that, you have a direct line of communication to them. Suddenly that chat head pops up on my phone, whether it's from an organization or from one of my best friends. So with one organization I was working with, there were a lot of hate crimes happening in the United States specifically and around the world, and they wanted to quickly build a community of people who wanted to be able to take action, to respond, right? It happens to be a crowdfunding platform, so they could launch all kinds of campaigns to help. And they wanted to be quick. They wanted to be able to get in there and say, oh, this just happened. Here's our response to it. Here's how you can act, right? And if somebody had a suggestion, if somebody spotted a hate crime or had some sort of news about one that they would like the group to take action upon, they could just punch it into the chat box, hit a button, and suddenly we have it. We know about it as well. We could disseminate it to everybody else, right? So it's two-way communication, and at the same time, it's a great way to just broadcast exactly to the people who want it on an instant basis.
And this shows up mobilely on their phone somehow, like an instant message.
Yeah, it's a messenger message in Facebook Messenger, whether you're on your desktop or on your phone or your tablet, wherever it is, you've got a new message.
Cool.
And everybody loves that ding, and everybody goes, we're all Pavlovian trained. Ding, gotta go check it. got to go check it.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, I'll have to put a link in somewhere. We'll have to find out like how people can set this up, or if there's a how-to out there on how to get Chatbox linked to their Facebook page.
Sure. I'm working on an article right now that maybe it will be up by the time that this goes live, and I'll be happy to share some insider tips, if you will, as someone who's had some experience building these now.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. So now you're on deadline. So.
I am. I love it.
Well, cool. I could see lots of uses for that too. Imagine being even an animal rescue. Cleo got adopted. Ping, here's a picture of Cleo and its new owner, and that's a feel-good message.
Or we just rescued some dog and desperately need help in the community. Right. Yep. That's an even quicker, heart-tugging call to action.
Yep. Yeah. So lots of ways to use that. Well, that's great. So that's developing the relationship, right? And so let's say we're using that, and we have our email. Maybe we have a newsletter. It sounds like we're going towards that funnel, though. And is it inevitable that we're going to head that direction?
Well, if you're doing it right, then yes.
Okay, cool. So let's head that direction then. Let's not beat around the bush. So I did Chatbox, and I got these people now. How am I leading them into the funnel? Because if I'm doing this little buckshot thing, or maybe I have a few people doing Chatbox and a few people on Instagram and some followers on YouTube, I have to develop a strategy that says these people need to be more than just kind of followers that like and maybe tweet. Occasionally, we're going to engage them. We're going to expand our audience. Right. Where does that strategy begin?
So that really begins and ends with storytelling, and storytelling ends with a call to action, right? So I talk a lot about the hero's journey. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but every story, every great story, and I mentioned this to you earlier. I'm a recovering filmmaker and actor. So I studied the Hollywood screenwriting formula, and all blockbusters follow it, right? There's a beginning, middle, and end, just like every story has to have. But in that beginning is some sort of a call to action. There is something that's going on in the world that the hero is often reluctant to take action upon, but at some point has to answer the call, take up the mantle, and fight the good fight until they beat the villain.
Right.
So in your story, regardless of how you're telling it, in what segment you're telling it, right? You're going to tell it a little differently on Instagram, a little differently on Twitter, definitely differently on Facebook and LinkedIn if you're using that, which a lot of nonprofits should actually. Whatever the format of the story, it has to follow that guideline. It has to follow of here's what's going on in the world, and now here's how you can take action. And those calls to action oftentimes will lead back to your website, but sometimes they won't. So there are a lot of tools out there that nonprofits can use to further their mission without asking for a single penny. Mm-hmm. And then there are definitely things that you need to raise money for in order to achieve your mission. So when you're creating your strategy and when you're trying to figure out how do you increase your impact, because also keep in mind that if you can show that you've increased your impact, more donors are going to want to donate to you, right? They're going to say, oh, they're doing great work, regardless of their budget today. If we give them more money, they're going to be able to do exponentially more. So in every piece of communication, there should be some sort of call to action, even if it's not directly related to you, right? Not everything you should be putting out there should be hey, do this for us, donate to us now, donate to us now. That gets old, and that really doesn't feel authentic. But as you build the relationship and then you do a call to action, oftentimes it'll be to come back to your website and take action on your site or read something that you've created, look at some sort of infographic that you've put out there, right? I do believe that content is huge because it's something that you can promote out there to show the work that you're doing. Even on Facebook, you could be publishing things all the time that say, here's what's going on in the world. Here's something that's happening in our community or in our sphere of influence or sphere of care. But now here's something that we're doing. And that's the one that you're going to boost to get the most audience. And on that boosted post, you've got to have that call to action to drive people to the next step.
And that call to action is bringing them further down the funnel.
Absolutely. So it could either be go to your website to read this, and once they've read it, they're going to sign up for your email list. Or it's go to your website to donate to a specific cause, or go to a crowdfunding campaign, or sign an online petition, right? Those are super easy to do these days and get attention and get people feeling like you're involved in the things that they care about and hopefully having an impact.
So how do you know when someone's taken that action? Like, okay, great. I got 5 email signups are easy because you see that. But how do you track this? They're coming down the funnel. You've missed some. Maybe they didn't go to the article, or maybe they didn't sign up. Some did. They're in different stages of this. And then you can retarget the ones who didn't sign up, and you can move the ones who did further on. But you're not doing this on a spreadsheet.
No. Although, listen,
some people try.
I was recently traveling, and I've got a big DSLR camera that I love, and both of my beautiful expensive lenses broke. And do you know what the best camera I had was? It was the one on my phone, and it was the one that I had. So whatever tool you have that you can use it. If you can upgrade your tools, and they don't always cost more money, but if you can upgrade your tools, of course, do it. But nothing wrong with a spreadsheet. I've actually given away a basic content management system all in an Excel spreadsheet. Right? If it works, it works, but it's not ideal, of course. So it depends on, of course, the platform that you're starting with. If you're starting with Facebook advertising has, its own analytics built in. There's also the Facebook Pixel that you mentioned, retargeting. So if you drop this piece of code on your website, Facebook then knows who has actually taken action, who has clicked, and how far down the funnel they've gotten. So let's say you have a post that's leading people to a newsletter. But your ultimate goal, not a newsletter, I'm sorry, an article, but your ultimate goal is to get them to sign up for your newsletter. Whatever your thank you page is, you tell Facebook, that's my goal. I want people who respond to this ad to wind up on my thank you page through this funnel. Mm-hmm. And Facebook will say, here's the number of conversions you had. The other way, of course, is Google Analytics, the ubiquitous and great system that can track pretty much anything as long as you use the proper coding. And I've worked with organizations that they put on their own coding, they do their own little things. Ultimately, I really recommend you use Google's recommended system, the UTM encoding system, because it's just designed for that. But you could instantly see these days, and it's real time, exactly how many people are taking action. So we just released, for one of my clients, we just released a newsletter and promotion yesterday. Within seconds, we saw a huge spike in traffic and in goal conversions. So we set up our goal, and we see that 50 people, refresh, 60 people have taken action and signed up for the newsletter and entered the giveaway.
Okay. So other tracking tools out there that like these are Facebook that's directly into the applications, right? Are there applications out there that can kind of do this all? I've heard of like ClickX and Infusionsoft, and these are pretty robust systems. But is there anything that you're recommending or using yourself that you would think that people might want to? That's not overwhelming, because boy, this stuff, I don't even. Yeah. I see videos on Infusionsoft and just think, oh my God, like how do you even begin?
Those are monster systems, and if you've got the resources to take advantage of them, that's fantastic. And they're more targeted towards marketers specifically to convert those types of things. I oftentimes will cobble together whatever the best tools are. One of them that I like that will actually track how someone looks at your website. There's a few out there. There's one called Hotjar that will literally either do a heat map of a page, and you could see where people spent the most time, where they clicked on what, or it'll even record your users. So someone comes to your website. Right now, I'm working with an organization that they just launched, and they're not sure why people aren't taking action. So we installed Hotjar, and now I can sit there and watch videos of how people interact with the page and see where they get bored or where they click, or make some certain assumptions based on that of what didn't work for them, where they turned off and went back to the next thing in their Facebook feed or wherever they came from.
Right. Or where they got lost. Maybe they clicked somewhere and it's like, that's not where I wanted to go. When they hit the back button, that's all good information.
Yeah. And watching how far down the funnel on your website they got, because usually you'll land them on one place and then you'll want them to go to the next step and then the next step, sometimes 2 or 3 steps. So if they didn't verify their email and come back to say, to get to your thank you page, something went wrong there. Sometimes I've even found that a URL was broken. Right. They had the wrong link. And by watching the interaction that users were having, we instantly were able to see that there was something wrong. And we went ahead and created a redirect to get them to the right place, because a couple of people were using the wrong URL.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that. I've actually probably done that too. Or, that's not the website, and then either redirect or resend the email, or it just causes confusion.
Yeah.
Okay. So developing this funnel then, right? So as we're gathering people in here, we're doing these call to actions. How do you lead them down the next step? So if I recall, I think I read somewhere, it takes kind of 7 interactions before you have a conversion. Yeah. So it's 7 different ways that they've connected with you, your site, your email list, whatever, before they've actually done that outcome of the funnel. So it sounds like we're at the kind of beginning stages there. Are there other ways to bring them in? You're kind of narrowing your list down towards a certain action?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's infinite probably ways of, first contacting people, first getting their eyeballs. And there's more optimal strategies, of course, than just the buckshot, as you called it, or spray and pray. And we could talk a little bit about that, exactly how you want to find your exact audience. But once you found them, the idea is to get them started on the funnel. So a lot of websites that I'll visit for nonprofits, I do consultations regularly, and I'll look at the website and I'll see there's a donate button at the top, and that's it. No other way for me to raise my hand and say, I care. No other way for me to raise my hand and say, keep me posted on this. Okay. So an email sign up is great. And please don't just say sign up for our newsletter or e-newsletter. Please actually say, what am I going to get if I sign up? So it's always offer me something in exchange for something. That's the thing that a lot of organizations are missing. And frankly, some for-profits miss as well. But if you're not offering me something, I'm not inclined to give you something back. I talk a lot about Robert Cialdini's influence, which when you talk in entrepreneurial circles, everybody knows, marketers especially know. But when you talk to nonprofits, it's a revelation for them. And he talks about all the different social indicators and all the different ways to get somebody to raise their hand. Of course, if they're genuinely interested, you shouldn't be using this for evil. But to get someone to raise their hand and say, I care about this. Once they do that, they're more inclined to take the next step and the next step. There was one study they did where they asked people, I think in California, if they could put a little sign in their window saying something about taking care of the environment. Forgive me, Professor Cialdini, if you're listening to this, or fans of the work. But out of the people who said, sure, put a little sign in my window, a huge percentage of them 2 weeks later said, you could put a big billboard in my front yard. As opposed to the people that they went to directly and said, can we put a big billboard in your front yard? Most of them said no. Right. So just getting someone to raise their hand and tell you and say out loud in any way that they are interested in your cause will automatically shift something in their minds so that they're more inclined to take more actions later. So, and here the analogy of dating often comes handy, because when you go on a first date, you don't ask to get married. Some people do, but usually it'll scare somebody off, right? What do you want to do on that first date when I've got lots of other options for dating these days? Not me personally, but I could go on a swiping app and swipe through thousands of potential matches today. Similarly, when I go on Facebook or when I go anywhere online, I get bombarded with ways that I could spend my time and money. So what's the first step in dating? It's, just have a conversation, maybe meet for coffee, right? You don't plan a 10-hour date your first time out either. When it comes to the conversion funnel, the first thing is you want them to raise their hand and say, I'm interested. And that might be by simply liking your Facebook page so that you can then, promote your posts to them later on. Or it might be, depending on how much value you've given them, it might be already giving you their email address. But think about the concept of money not as a thank you, which a lot of nonprofits still see it that way, but as an IOU. Okay, I go to a store or I buy something on Amazon. Amazon promises to deliver it. I now owe them money, right? With a nonprofit, the more value you give me, the more I'm inclined to pay you back. And so I often advise, give somebody your ideal call to action, like give me your email address, okay, in exchange for a great quality blog post and proof that your nonprofit is an expert in the subject that I want to hear about more. I'll give you my email address. If I'm not ready for that, a smaller ask might be like us on Facebook or share this page, right? So I always say, don't give people too many choices. Don't say donate or give us your email or do this or do this or do that, because the paradox of choice is people won't pick anything. But ask them for the next step in the funnel, and if they're not ready to take that, give them the next level down.
Right. So it sounds like a focused page, like a landing page,
Yeah.
Sign up for this newsletter because we're going to give you updates on this developing story or on whatever it is, and not to just tell them everything they're going to get all at once. And then you'll get this, and like you don't want to overwhelm them with.
Well, it's yes, but also when you're looking at it, it doesn't have to be just a focused landing page to get conversions for the newsletter. It shouldn't even necessarily be, and there are cases where it should. We could talk about lead magnets, but I'm talking about it's a blog post. Okay, you've gotten me to your website looking at a blog post, or you found me on Facebook and you're talking about something. The next action to take would be from Facebook to go to your website. From your website, you've given me value saying something important about the topic that you are an expert in and that you're addressing in the world. You've given me some sense of, you've given me some information, some emotional context, some feeling of reward for having read this. Okay, I feel like I've gotten something out of spending 5 minutes on your site. Now, at the bottom of that, ask me for my email address, because now I associate you with something positive that you've given me and I want to give back. And in that call to action for that newsletter, tell me I'm going to get more of this type of content plus something else perhaps, and give me, let me sign up quick and easy. Okay. If I'm not ready for that, then below it, say, please share this content with other friends who might be interested.
There you go. I was just going to ask you other ways of asking for. Sorry, my wheels on my chair are sliding backwards, so I feel like I'm sliding away from the camera. Other ways of asking for calls to action, right? So you have share, you have like, sign up for newsletter, donate, which is the one everyone kind of jumps to. Other calls to action you can think of that would keep people kind of engaged and help you track them? Did I just cover them all?
Yeah, so it really depends on what the post is about or what you're talking about at the time. But, I mentioned before, sign a petition. Or even watch a video, right? Or go to our crowdfunding campaign and learn more about this. Signing petitions is great because, then people have actually taken an action about something that they care about. Can you retarget those same people? Hopefully, if you can, first get their email address and then get them to go there, or vice versa after they've come back from signing to sign up. Because you want to reach out to them afterwards and you want to say, hey, thanks for taking this action. It might also be, volunteer, come volunteer, or learn more about volunteering, or download our PDF, our ebook on this subject matter, right? So here's the whole lead magnet thing. Once you've given value, in exchange for even more value, I'll give you more. So at the bottom of your blog post about the state of homelessness in northern New Jersey, and that's actually an organization I just spoke to a couple of days ago, they're focused on that. At the end of a blog post about that, offer me a white paper of some sort or an ebook on how certain federal funding is now going to be affecting what's happening in my neighborhood. So I've already identified myself as someone who's caring about that by reading the blog post and getting that far down. Now you're going to give me more information, something more tangible and valuable, right? There's a perceived value in a download versus just something I could read online in exchange for my email address. Well, great, sure. If I am the person who's concerned with that subject, I'm going to give you my email address in exchange for this, and now you can keep up with me and keep me posted on more things.
Right. So this funnel, as we go down it then and we keep them posted, it's continual content creation. It's
yes, for the most part it is, because if you're not providing value all the time, and content in this case can be so many different things, but it has to provide some sort of value. And if you're not providing value all the time, then I'm not feeling indebted to you as a potential donor to give back.
And then that content would be the storytelling. Like we were saying, the best way to produce the content is to tell that story.
Yeah.
That keeps people engaged.
Absolutely.
Cool. I'm going to jump back a little bit because you mentioned something before we started going down the funnel. It was finding that audience, right? And there's the buckshot method, or however you want to call it, right? The spray out and just find people. But, when you have your audience, let's say we have 1,000 people who like our Facebook page and we have 500 people on our newsletter and it's stagnant. We're like, oh, well, they're there. We kind of gained 2 now. And we're going to get this funnel done, and we're very excited about this content funnel that we have going for, we'll stick with dog rescue or something like that. Like the following a dog coming into the shelter and getting adopted, or the rehab of how we have a special surgery care emergency ward, or whatever, right? So we're going to tell this story, and we divided it into like 5 different layers in the funnel. I guess, does that make sense? So we're gonna launch this. How am I gonna bring people to that aren't already existing in my databases, in my spreadsheets, in my email list?
Yeah. So here is where knowing your audience and having some sort of base really helps. I talk about, I do a presentation called Growing Beyond Your Base. And basically it comes down to 2 things. One is growing the people who already like your cause, who are just like your current audience. And 2 is people who are not like your current audience, but you think should really like your cause. And when we talk about storytelling, the first set of questions you have to ask yourself includes, who am I telling the story to, right? So you currently probably have some sort of base for your organization, some sort of list of people that are already involved, that are already donating, right? So you could base your avatar, your target avatar, on those people. What do they all have in common? What is the way I like to phrase it is, who is the person that if they found your website or this piece of content within the first 8 to 15 seconds max, as the studies have shown, will say, yes, I resonate with this resonates with me, I want to know more, right? Playing the game of, I first have to educate people that they should care about this subject, that's a much longer game. And I'm not saying don't play it, but that's not the quick, easy win, right? So you've got an audience already. What do they all have in common? What do they look like? Create this image, full demographic and psychographic profile of this person. That will then help you frame your content, tell your story. Believe me, Hollywood knows exactly who's going to come to their movies. They're happy to be pleasantly surprised, but they know exactly who's going to come to the movie before they ever, write a word.
Right.
And I have, professional screenwriters who do this. They know, okay, this movie is going to resonate with young men ages 18 to 24. This is going to be more for the married women. This is going to be, different audiences. And it might even appeal to different demographics in terms of income level or location, right? So the first thing you got to know is who exactly you're talking to. And you can base that off your current base, or you could go out there and do some testing. Now, if you have a current base, another thing that I recommend is sending out a survey. What are they interested in? Why do they respond to your content in the first place? What do they get out of being a part of your organization, right? And you want to make them feel like genuinely a part of your organization, which a well-crafted survey will help do, because it'll help them feel like you care about their opinions, their thoughts, right? And they feel like they're influencing what's going to happen with your organization.
Right.
So crafting a survey will help you also create the target avatar. It'll also, if you do it well, get you some great quotes and some language, some verbiage that you can use right back into your content that's going to attract more people, right? Use my language in order to attract someone who's just like me.
Right. So you could ask open-ended questions in the survey, kind of like, what's your favorite part about our service, or how have we helped your whatever. Get some quote that you might be able to use.
I don't know what that is that's ringing. I'm so sorry. I thought I shut off everything.
It's not showing up on my screen, so.
Okay. Let me just kill my browser. Maybe that's coming there.
All right.
All right, that did the trick.
So
sorry about that.
So we're talking about finding that audience. Expanding beyond. So let's try to figure out how we do that. Like, how do you develop that? So let's say we're doing a dog rescue, and we are taking on a new program. We are taking dogs that have some type of disability, a 3-legged dog, a dog that's blind, a deaf dog, whatever, right? And so we're going to try to find new people to bring into this campaign. How would you start approaching that? Go for it.
Yeah. So the question is there any difference between them and your current audience, right? Is this a program that you're launching or a campaign that you're launching that your current base wouldn't necessarily directly respond to? If it is, then of course you're going to go to your current base, but then you're going to find more people like your base. And the way you're going to do that is through either targeted advertising on Facebook, right? You've written out your target demographic. You can then go ahead and target people just like your target demographic. And Facebook knows everything about us these days, so you could really get granular. Or You can upload your current email list, and a lot of nonprofits are surprised by this when I tell them about it. But Facebook has lookalike audiences now, right? Where I can take my subscriber list, or anyone can take their subscriber list, upload it into Facebook. Facebook then parses it and sees every email address that's associated with an account on Facebook and says, okay, it throws away everybody else. It's irrelevant to Facebook. And it just says, okay, now I have 100 or 200 or 300 people on Facebook. And again, Facebook knows everything about them.
Right. What
do they all have in common? What are their points in common? And now you can create an audience, 1% of the United States, or localize it even more, that has those same similarities. So it's a quick, easy way to find similar types of audiences. And of course, you're not going to ask them to donate instantly because you don't have the relationship yet. But you start telling them the story. You start pulling them into your impact funnel, right? Mm-hmm. So those are two ways, with just promoted posts and targeted posts, and then using the lookalike audiences specifically. Beyond that, you can actually create value for your anticipated base and advertise that to them. You can find from your current audience, one of the survey questions that I always say to ask is, where do you currently congregate online, right? Not those exact words, but instead of doing the spray and pray tactic of just going everywhere on Pinterest, on Instagram, and everywhere, ask your current base, what are the social platforms that you're most active on? Mm-hmm. That's most likely where not only their friends are, but also people who are similar to them, who have common interests or common demographics, are also hanging out. Right. So that gives you a quick narrow down of places to go spending your time and energy on getting new people.
Right. So maybe you find a new platform to do some outreach on.
Find a new platform, or focus more of your energies on the platforms that your base is already telling you that you're on. So if you're on 4 or 5 different platforms, maybe you're wasting a lot of your time and energy, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. It's all about optimizing your resources. Nonprofits are always strapped, for time, money, and manpower. So that is crucial. Then the next thing is using those people. Another thing I say to ask in the surveys is, why do you or why don't you currently share our content? So coming back to Robert Cialdini and influence and all kinds of studies about social proof, millennials today are much more likely to respond to user-generated content than they are to branded content. Mm. So if I, as Boris, am posting something that an organization that I care about is doing, that is going to have a lot more resonance and, frankly, on Facebook, reach a lot more people than the organization sharing it themselves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So are there any steps you could take, any small changes you could make to get your current audience to share more of your content, right? And then it comes down to, well, why do people share? Why don't people share? And then, of course, when it's time to, giving them that call to action to please share it, because chances are their friends are interested in similar things.
Right. And now you spread your reach. And so when you have your next call to action, come over here and read this article, yep. You've just brought 100, 500, 1,000 more people to it.
Absolutely.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
There's stats for all this because it's all trackable, and it's what are conversion rates like? So people can think like, hey, I just did this call to action, only 5 people signed up, and they think that's lousy. Well, that might be great. Like, so what's the expectation there?
So it really obviously varies depending on your exact organization, whom you're targeting, and methodology you're using, the length of relationship you already have with them. But ultimately, it comes down to, I think, how much value you've provided. So when it comes to an email, I use MailChimp for most of my clients and myself. And MailChimp will tell you, oh, in this industry, this is about average, this is above average. And 25% is a pretty decent number for open rates. For click-through rates, I would say if you're getting 10%, that's amazing. Because that means you're right on track. And hopefully you're segmenting your email list so that you're getting people the exact kind of information that they're interested in. I actually am always surprised how few nonprofits segment their lists, because you oftentimes have your beneficiaries and your benefactors on one list. Right. And frankly, they're not always going to respond to the same thing, or people who are on certain levels versus others. So click-through rates, I've seen click-through rates as low as 1 to 2%, but they were still effective, not just because those are the people that are saying they're the most interested, right? But also because sometimes you're putting most of your content in your email, so you don't necessarily need someone to respond. You don't need them to take a certain action. There's a few different metrics, if you will, as far as how much content to put out before asking for something back, or how much to give before asking for something back. Oftentimes the numbers you hear are 3-to-1 or 5-to-1. I think 5-to-1 is better. You're providing value 5 times before you ask for something back. So you're getting people to feel really indebted. So when it comes to the calls to action, if it's some group that you've given a lot of value to, then fantastic. If you're putting out an ad to new people, and you're not getting the results you want, so that is going to come back to your ROI, right? Your return on investment. If you spend $500 on an ad and you only get 10 people donating and it totals $503, well, chances are you could have spent your time differently, right? But if you're measuring and you see on Facebook, for example, you could put out 6 ads at one time, and you put out 6 ads that are targeted to slightly different people, Facebook will tell you, okay, these people are responding more. This ad is costing you less. And you start playing with that and getting in there. Basically, there's a common misconception, and it's really not anyone's fault except the companies that are putting it out there. Google and Facebook claim that they are a PPC, pay-per-click platform. What they really are is pay-per-eyeball platform, right, which is impressions. But they structure it so that it's per click and you're bidding on clicks. So if your ad is really well targeted, or your post, whatever it might be, is really well targeted to people who are more inclined to respond to it, then you're going to get a much higher click-through rate, and your cost per eyeball is going to be lower because your cost per eyeball is going to be the same, I should say, but your cost per action is going to be lower because a higher percentage of those eyeballs are taking action.
Right, because maybe less eyeballs going to it, but it's targeted towards the right eyeballs.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, spray and pray. You could target your ad towards 20 million people in the United States, and in your mind, perhaps they should all take action, but will they?
Right.
That's a different story. So who, if they see your ad or if they see your content, is going to want to take action now, not someone who has to be educated that they should want to take action.
Right. Cool. So 2 things I just want to touch on there, and I'll put links to this in the program, because we're talking about surveys and we're talking about MailChimp. So MailChimp we've talked about before in the program. People have to be familiar with that by now. If not, I'll make sure there's a link to it. It's free. I really like MailChimp. I use it myself. And if you do the paid version, you can start doing drip content and all sorts of stuff where there's this automated stuff.
They actually just released automation to the free level as well.
Oh, just when I bought it. All right. And then and then, of course, SurveyMonkey is a really easy. Everyone knows SurveyMonkey, so that link will be there. People want to do surveys. It's quick, it's easy. You sign, it's free, and you can send a link out.
There are some others that I like to use. Actually, Google Forms I think is fantastic, and it'll put together an Excel spreadsheet basically for you of the results. It'll also do some analytics for you. I'm sure it's very similar to what SurveyMonkey offers. It's just most people already have a Google account. Most nonprofits use Google for nonprofits and have their unlimited access to these things. So I recommend Google Forms oftentimes for these things. Also, there's a platform called Typeform that just creates really pretty surveys, really pretty forms with all kinds of functionality that you could add in there.
Okay, cool.
And they're a little more, the user experience is nicer, so people are more likely to want to go through it.
All right, cool. I just wrote those down. All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Last little question for you.
Oh.
This obviously, I think people are convinced like this makes sense, and of course that's what you do. We're wasting a lot of time and just kind of running in place by just doing these old kind of, hey, like this page, like this, but you have to have this strategy. Someone wants to get started in this. It sounds a little overwhelming at first, but to get started, get your feet wet. What would you assign them to do to start their first kind of a funnel or online strategy?
Right. So step 1 is get your story down, and that is define your who, what, when, where, why, and how. And then define your target avatar. Right. And if you can have multiple target avatars. There's your benefactors and your beneficiaries. You can also split them by program. I know lots of nonprofits say, oh, but I've got a lot of different programs. They appeal to different people. Okay, great. Create an avatar for each of them. But no page should ever be written. No post should ever be posted. No content ever released. No video recorded that is not targeted to a very specific person. I even advise people, once you've written out the avatar, always give them a name. And if you can find a photo, whether it's one of your current supporters or, go get a stock photo of someone who looks like that. A lot of people will have on their desks pictures of their family. I have some up there behind me. But they don't have a picture of the person that they're trying to help or that they're trying to reach. And if you have that picture there, it's much easier to say, I am talking to Sarah, or I'm talking to James, or whomever it might be right now. And this is what I think they're going to respond to because I know them well, right? That's always step one for me.
Cool. And so find the story, find the audience, and then find the delivery method. Would that be number 3?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. Yes.
There you go.
So number 3 is decide where you're going to tell your story and how. And ultimately, I do think it comes back to a good website, because if your website's not good, it also reflects upon you. We do judge books by their cover, whether we want to or not. And a good website reflects well upon you and the quality of work that you're putting out, right? It's the same thing if you find someone on the street who's dressed in a really nice suit versus someone who's wearing ripped jeans and a t-shirt. You're going to associate them with different things instantly in your mind, right? So present yourselves the way that you want to be perceived.
Yeah.
And a website ultimately is going to be the biggest reflector of that.
Yep. And that website could be ripped jeans or it could be a suit. But you
absolutely, it's whatever's going to resonate with your avatar.
Perfect.
Yeah. And don't bother trying to design your website until you know your avatar.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hey, man, that was really great. So how do we get a hold of you? .org strategy, we mentioned it before, .orgstrategy.com. There's I'm going to look over on the other screen here because I have you up in 2 windows.
Yeah.
But you have a course. Oh, when I did that, I just turned on. Yep. Let me redo that. Whoops. Didn't lose anybody. All right, cool. You have obviously your blog. You have tools and resources which are free, but you also have a course on there too, and the course seems to be very affordable. Just tell us a little bit about what people are going to find on your sites and how best to get in touch with you.
Sure. So on .orgstrategy.com, which I know is a little bit of a funny name to wrap your mind around, but once you do, it makes sense. We offer all kinds of tools and resources. Basically, we'll review strategies, we'll review tools that are out there today, like Typeform, like video platforms, all kinds of stuff, and say whether or not they have a nonprofit discount and why we recommend them or not. We do everything we can to really make it easy for an organization that maybe doesn't have a dedicated person in this role, that's constantly scanning for new technology, constantly, playing with things and trying to figure out what to use and what not to. We do that all for free, all the time. That's our goal. Then we do have a course, and we're going to be launching a few more actually soon. And those courses are paid. They're still affordable. We keep them around the $100, sometimes they go up to $200, depending on the length of the course of the ones that were coming out, where basically it's all of the things that we're talking about. It's a step-by-step process of here's how to set up your strategies. Here's how to set up your Facebook profile, your Facebook chatbot, whatever. As I mentioned, I'm working on some content about chatbots, and eventually we'll probably have a quick, webinar style course on how to do that. We haven't launched most of those things yet. They're coming this summer, but right now the only course that's up there is, it's all about actually most of the things that we talked about today. It's how do you tell your story online? What is the strategy, and how do you create that strategy to be most efficient for your organization at whatever level you're currently at? And I'm happy to, if your audience you think would be interested in that, I'm happy to give you guys a special discount code so that they could come in there and take a look. Honestly, it's not all about making money. As you and I talked about before, I have a for-profit side as well that I work with a lot, and I still use my for-profit to support my nonprofit habit. So I'm happy to give as much value as I can, still covering some costs and creating relationships with nonprofits. So I'll be happy to, give you a custom link and give people a special discount on that course if they're interested, as well as this is something I've been doing lately, and I can't do too much of it, but I can offer some one-on-one time. If you go to .orgstrategy.com facebook.com/bookboris. It'll redirect you to a page where you can sign up for a half-hour slot. And usually I charge for these things, but you can enter a code. If someone enters NP Ally, when does this podcast come out?
Probably, let's see, you're in queue. So you're the second one in queue, probably in 1 month, actually. So we are talking mid-July.
Okay. So whenever it does come out, then
I'll
keep that code. Yeah, I hope so. I'll keep that code active, for a couple of weeks afterwards, where people can come on and sign up for a one-on-one with me to talk about any of these strategies. Really, no push, no sales. I really love connecting with nonprofits, hearing what they're struggling with. It helps me generate more content. It helps me, figure out ways to help more of them. So we could do that.
Cool. As you were talking just then, I know you can't see my screen, but I pulled your website into the screen, so it recorded kind of what you were talking about as you were talking about.
Okay.
So I kind of showed people who are watching on video where your course is, the news and reviews, the tools area, and of course you have this download for a free guide on there too. And
that's my little lead magnet.
Perfect. All these links you talked about, as well as the code, the discount code, I'll make sure are in the show notes for people. So if they just go to the show notes in the site, everything will be there for them to jump off right onto your site from.
Fantastic.
All right, man. Hey, that was great. This was fun to do. I like doing this video stuff. This is pretty cool. So maybe
I hear it's catching on, this video thing.
Yeah, that's what they say. Well, Boris, thanks so much for being on the program, and hope to talk to you soon.
My pleasure, Steve. It's been great.